So guys, we are literally counting down the days until Australia decides. Right now, I'm joined by Paul Clarke, the creative director for Australia Decides and at Eurovision. Paul, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, and I got to say, I'm really excited to see. I know that there's lots of people who are really excited to see what Australia is going to be bringing this year. I want to know, now that this is the second year that you're revisiting the national final format, how does it feel to be doing this once again after having such a successful year?
Look, last year was a real. It wasn't an experiment. We've been around Eurovision a lot, and we'd watched how to do the show, and we'd had a lot of experience in entertainment, but it was the first time that we actually could just set our plans in practice and see what would happen. And we really set off to, I think, first and foremost, get a great dinner party of artists and songs. That was our initial idea. Mm-hmm. So last year was a big success for us and well received, I think. And we got Kate Miller-Heidke from it, who was just such a wonderful champion for us to take her to Tel Aviv. Was a big moment. And I thought she did a performance that will really endure in Eurovision history. So it's no mean feat to come back from that and to think, all right, well, what are we going to do this year that's different? And how are we going to make it next level? So I think we're lucky in that we've got some brilliant artists, some really differently respected artists, and we've gone for different genres of artists as well. So we've opened up the door a little bit more to Australia's very strong independent and alternative market of music. And we've got some very strong reality performers in there as well I've got Vanessa Amorosi, who has just been an Australian sweetheart from the moment that she sang at the Olympics in the year 2000. And, you know, there's some really big voices, but there's also some very interesting new voices like Dadiris and Montaigne's. Yeah, so it's just taken a little bit more time to craft this year because last year was so special, and we had people like Electric Fields and Shepherd and Aiden and people like that, where you just sort of go, wow, Courtney Act. And so it was very strong last year. So it's just taken a little bit of time to get a comparative dinner party of songs and artists.
Yeah, well, you know, as you mentioned, what you guys brought to Tel Aviv last year, it is definitely something that's going to stay in the hearts and minds of Eurovision fans and anyone else who had been lucky enough to see it. I actually converted my family, members of my family, to Eurovision this past show, and Australia stood out for all of us. I think my dad, like, his mind was blown just seeing that. So, you know, obviously, I'm sure you're very proud of it. But I have to wonder, when it comes to, you know, as you mentioned, you're trying to get that dinner party of artists and, you know, reflect the diversity of Australia. Are you thinking about staging? Because obviously such a big component of that was the staging and how it brought the song to this whole other world, out of this world. Is that a factor when it comes to choosing the artists and the songs at this point?
Not initially when you hear the song. You listen, I mean, I spend my life walking around thinking, wow, Dreadlock Holiday, 10cc, T-Rex, you know, Get It On. That would have been, I'm constantly listening for what would be a great song for Eurovision. Once you have the song, you're trying to find its sort of core to create a moment. You have to create a moment at Eurovision, and it doesn't necessarily need a big prop to do it, but you're trying to find a moment that will endure in everything else, and that people can kind of bed in with, and you're trying to find a moment that will match the kind of cultural place in time. So I think Kate worked very well because Europe already had opera, you know, so it wasn't, we just needed a bit of a magic bullet to take people beyond the idea of this is an opera. But to us, it sounds like Nina Hagen, the new wave. And I hear a lot of Australian alternative music in Kate. Put it in a much different frame in order to charm and kind of people to lean in, I think, you know. So this year we're doing some really wild stuff. Like, we've got a little bit over excited about some of the ideas staging wise, I think, and there's quite a lot of props, and there's a bit of danger as well in what we're doing. But I think that the audience, they really want to see something that's different, and they really want to see the Eurovision stage as a place where you can experiment ideas and you can really enjoy the difference in what people are singing about and who they want to be on that stage. And I love that about it. I really love that about it.
In terms of the artist selection, at this point, is it mostly the production team that's doing that outreach and being the first point of contact to get those artists involved with Australia Decides, or are you getting submissions? How is it working for you at this point?
Well, it sort of works on two levels. On one level, we invite songs for people to contribute songs, and we got 600 songs this year, of which there were about 20 songs that I thought, well, they're strong. And then you're trying to match the song with the artist. In the meantime, you're talking to people. I've had an ongoing conversation with Montaigne for 4 or 5 years, you know, just waiting for the right moment for her. With Kate, I was talking to Kate Miller-Heidke for years. You know, I remember when we first performed at Vienna in 2015, Guy Sebastian was our performer. And I remember him saying to me, I've got a friend that would just be so fantastic for Eurovision. You should really think about Kate Miller-Heidke. And so that conversation went right back there. And when we heard Kate's song come in, it was like, oh, wonderful. But this year, there were a number of songs that arrived on the song website that we just went, holy hell, that's just fantastic. There was a song by a young guy, young Australian songwriter from the south coast of New South Wales, and he'd spent years in an Indian orphanage as a music teacher, and this song Life had come to him. We connected it with who's really well known here for his cabaret. He was Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and he was Frankenfurter. And he was the Doof Warrior in Mad Max Fury Road, you know, the guy who's leading the charge with a guitar. So, I mean, and he agreed to do the song. And then we began to, and that's when the staging really begins, when you think, this song is a license for mischief. Now, how can we best frame what Iota can bring to that? He's going to really bring the song to life. What are we going to do about it? You know, how can we do that? So we got something really special for that song.
It sounds exciting, and by the sounds of it, it seems that you're involved right from the get-go. It's not just a matter of let's see what the artists can do on their own and bring to Australia Decides, and then we'll take it from there. You're involved from the very beginning to bring this to Australia first.
Yeah, so I mean, I listened to the 600 songs with a team of people, and and the way we do it is to sort of put 10 pegs in the ground of, right, that's our ballad. That's a beautiful power ballad. We got a song called Proud from a young writer called Justine El Takshi. And I thought, well, imagine Celine Dion singing this song. This is a beautiful moment from a musical, and it's class. And it's going in the competition if we can get a good singer. And we sent it to Casey Donovan, and she listened to it before she was performing in Chicago, the musical. and I've been sending her songs for years. And this one, she started to cry when she heard it. She just loved it. And she said, this song has got to be heard. And I really, I was delighted. And we went with an orchestra. So, yeah, we'll see how the audience responds, but I think it's going to be a beautiful moment. So literally, we start off there. I did quite a bit of time in the studios. I was a former musician, and I know my way around a studio reasonably well, and I can help in the recordings with some of the people that need it. Others, like Montaigne, you know, I don't go anywhere near the studio. They just send me the song. But some of them want my help, and that's, you know, like for me, it's just a really enjoyable kind of part of the job.
I can imagine. Yeah, you know, just the idea of being able to kind of get your hands dirty and to have that involvement from the early stages.
I don't want to give the impression of myself as a helicopter parent. You know, I'm not this difficult parent that you have to run everything by. But for me, it's a really exciting way to work. And we then build the visual ideas from the ground up. We've got a great art director who makes really good suggestions. And then we've got a great technical team of bringing some vague ideas of, what about we put someone in a snow dome into life, you know?
It all sounds really exciting, and I want to ask about the build up to this point, because I remember hearing you in another interview saying that you weren't able to bring the selection right to a national selection format from the get-go. It kind of took some time to build up to that. Considering that with this previous round there were 600 songs, I imagine that there's probably some hope to expand the contest or to you know, to give even more people the opportunity. Do you have any ideas of your own, or do you look at some of the national selections from other countries to see how they do it?
Yeah, look, I love being in the room for Melody Festival, and with 30,000 for their final, and the Swedes react very similar to music to us, I believe. You know, like we share a sense of humor, we share a sense of passion for music, and we're little countries. We're little countries that want to play a little bit bigger. I think that's who we are. Obviously, the Swedes have got an incredible culture around their music. It's one of their biggest industries now. You know, before ABBA, they were a Lindenbury nation. You know, they picked Lindenburys, and ABBA changed their culture entirely. And in some ways, it's the same for us. You know, we have AC/DC, we have NXS, we have Kylie Minogue, and we had the Easy Beats, and we had the Seekers. And for us, music is a really important thing. We need to what's happening internationally. We're competing with the rest of the world. It's very important to us because we're so far away. So, yeah, look, we'd love to see the project grow. I think let's see how we go this year, because we've crammed as much into one night as you can possibly cram. You know, it's like been trying to push the duvet into a Scotch bottle. You know, we've got so much trying to.
I can imagine. Well, speaking of competition, as you mentioned, competing with the rest of the world, the fans of Eurovision are always, that one of the things that they talk about very often when it comes to Australia is that you guys have a perfect qualification record up to now. And I know that, of course, making the finals is important for a lot of countries, but perhaps that when it comes to the production itself, it's perhaps not the most important thing. For you, what is your approach when it comes to the possibility of non-qualification and making an impact at the contest? What is most important to you?
I think, look, you have to trust your gut instincts about what Europe is going to respond to. And you need to feel like you're on the front foot, like you're on the good foot with where you're setting out in terms of your story and your artist and your song. Because, I mean, ultimately, Eurovision is different than any other event in the world because it's driven by the blogs. So the whole word of mouth begins in moments like this, and then it keeps building until it gets to the newspapers. Mm-hmm. Like for us, I personally never expected Duncan Laurence to win because it was just an offender. I just didn't think that was I didn't think it was possible. But what he did was create his own moment. And that was really impressive that he could do that just with a piano. I think we're good at creating moments, and we like to be irreverent, and we like to be entertaining, and we like to just sort of push the barriers. So I think there's a place for us, so long as we kind of stick to what we do. I think Europe would like to think that Australia is delivering them something that's innovating and exciting, a little bit cheeky. I think that's who we are. And quality. I think that we want to really deliver quality because we're a very nice nation. We want to give you what you want. That's the kind of people that we are.
Well, I think a lot of people would agree with you because, you know, Australia tends to always be, you know, top of people's lists. People always have always have their eyes on you. Of course, we are coming down to the last few days before the show. At this point, what are the preparations like? What more has to be done? And I imagine that obviously most of the work has been done by now. But what stage are you?
Look, we're in a very good place. We're currently now just going through all the choreography routines. We're just maxing out on hours with the LED and making sure that we've got all the LED content together, and we bump in the set on the weekend. So we start rehearsals, we start wheeling out all our enormous props for different acts on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we actually start rehearsing. So it's exciting. Most of the team is already up on the Gold Coast. So there are still a few tickets left for anybody that's interested. I think the show is about 90% full, but the other two shows, there's still tickets for. So if you can get a ticket, there's going to be a lot of excitement in that room.
People definitely should get on that. I mean, anyone who saw the show last year, they'll know what they'll be missing. And as I understand, there's a lot of in addition to the contestants, there are a lot of interval acts that people can look forward to. I hear Mons Zemmerlove, Kate Miller-Heideke, of course. Is it Guy Sebastian or Dami Im who's coming as well?
No, Dami this year. So Kate will perform Zero Gravity in a different setup. Two songs, one with Dami Im, which will be a duet, and Dami will just do a song by herself. So, yeah, wow. Look, there's some interesting surprises to come during the show as well. There's some interesting things that we're going to kind of let go of, which I'm really excited about.
It sounds like there's lots to be excited about. I think in order for me to watch, I'm going to have to do what the rest of Australia does when they tune into Eurovision and wake up really, really early. But it sounds like it's going to be worth it. Thank you so much for your time. Last thing, maybe just tell me, beyond participating, is there one thing, if let's say things weren't to go your way, what would be your biggest hope to get out of the experience of Australia being at Eurovision in Rotterdam this year?
I don't want to come across as overly ambitious, but I think it would be a great thing for Australia to win the competition because it would redefine, in some ways, our interest in it. And I think Australians would just really get excited about the whole project. This year, I mean, there was an election campaign running, and the cartoons were full of the Prime Minister and the Leader of Opposition on Kate's, you know, bendy poles and that sort of thing. It's really the culture. But I'd like to think that we will win it one day, and I think it'll be really good for Australia, and I think for Europe it'll be an interesting kind of reset of what does Eurovision mean, and now it's growing into the kind of event that's really, truly kind of global. When it is like Japan, if you see the Rugby World Cup or the Olympics in a place like Japan, you kind of accept that, well, that's the way they do it, and we're watching a huge event from there, and that's exciting. And I'd like to think that the Eurovision Song Contest could kind of do that one day as well. But first, we've got to win, and we've put a lot of work into trying to do that this year. We'll do it one day.
Yeah. Well, the work shows, and I think in addition to, you know, changing what the contest means for Europe, I think it also would change what it means for the rest of the world, because you guys are kind of like the ascended fanboys. You made it into the contest purely out of love for it. So maybe one day we'll see countries like Canada follow suit if we ever pick up the amount of love that you guys have.
Look, I'd love to see that. Canada, I mean, it's one of the great things. A lot of affinity with who we are. But imagine Neil Young at Eurovision. Wow. Can you imagine?
That's a pipe dream. But anyway, Paul, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. For those of you who are still interested in going to Australia to decide, it sounds like there's still tickets available. So be sure to get them before they go out. And we'll catch you next time. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Cheers, Stuart.